Hope everybody's doing well. Having some more technical difficulties with my monitor again, my second one. It's really annoying. So it's going to be hard for me to measure my, keep an eye on my chat. So I got it up on my phone, so we'll see how that goes. Let me just make sure things are running decently here. Alright, good. YouTube looks good. X, how's X doing? Let's see. Man, X has been giving me a lot of trouble these days. Okay, good. Alright, I think we're doing alright. Hopefully Prime Hack won't crash. That has been happening as I've set things up. Alright. Let me just set my phone up here so I can see if people are saying anything. My notebook. Close my laptop over here because my kitty is in here today because he annoys my wife. Alright, I think we're good to go for now. Let me move this down a bit. Good. It's actually hard to play when I don't have my second screen because I have my mic right in my face. And now that Kitty's in here, he wants all the attention. I heard people like to see animals on screen, so maybe this will work out for me. He just likes to knock stuff over, and that's not good. It causes a lot of problems, like any other cat. Do not bite that cord. Okay, let's see. Prime 2 echoes. Alright. Come on, frame rates. There we go. Come on, go ahead. All right, so here we go. Wow, this cat is persistent. Uh-oh. Okay, good. Doing good. All right, so yeah, yesterday, just doing some more research for the stream, trying to find good topics of discussion, and I watched a few Boss Keys. Boss Keys is a great channel for video essays on game design for specific games, and I watched his Super Metroid one and his Metroid Prime 2, his Metroid Prime 2 video. And come on. He just pointed some things out that I feel like I knew at some point, but forgot about Metroid Prime 2. And the important thing is the structure of Metroid Prime 2 is very different than Metroid Prime 1. And I know that sounds like, obvious, but you don't really notice it. I noticed it. I remember noticing it as a kid, but not during this playthrough, and that the idea here is that Metroid Prime 1, I think they felt like the 3D world was too big to navigate, which I didn't feel so, I didn't think so. And so when Retro Studios built Prime 2, their solution to that was basically Prime 2 is divided into 3 temples. They even call them temples. So it has a much more like a Zelda structure. And if you want a fuller breakdown of this, go to Boss Key's channel and watch it. But yeah, Prime 2 is divided into 3 temples with a main hub area. And we already talked about the hub area for sure, and how that was a huge thing in gaming a while ago, and it still is a huge thing in game design. Kitty, just relax. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's hard to play a game and talk, and when you have a cat on your lap trying to give you little nibbles. I don't know what his problem is. Oh gosh, okay. Maybe he'll get bored and leave me alone. Okay. Let's get on track here first before I start jabbering about stuff. So I just beat the boss for the Torvus Bog, the Twilight Princess copy boss, or rather the boss that the Twilight Princess Lake Hylia boss was based off of, because I feel like that game came out after Metroid Prime 2. But it's pretty much the same fight. You fight the larva in the dark world, and then you have to fight the adult version of it. Alright. Okay. Interesting. Bird o'clock again. Okay, yeah, let me get back to what I was saying here. Oh, this stupid thing. Nice. Okay, yeah, so Metroid Prime 1 has that kind of sprawling landscape, and the Talon overworld is the hub world. But the hub world is not as like noticeable as most hub worlds. It's like not open or anything. It is a world in and of itself in the Metroid sense, in that it's a labyrinth. Metroid Prime 2 has the same deal going on with the temple grounds, but to a lesser extent. It's still a labyrinth, and you still have to figure out how to get through it, but it's much more organized in a sense. And I think the Nintendo Retro developers, they thought that the navigation of Metroid Prime 1 was a little too difficult because of the 3D environment. You know, it's like when you translate things into 2D and 3D, you know, it changes the game, and I think that they were concerned that it was a little too much for players at the time to learn to memorize a map in a 3D setting. You know, at that time, it was the 3D setting was relatively new, so relatively. It'd only been around since N64. And now my other animal's causing problems. Had to have them both in here today. They tend to cause a lot of noise sometimes when they're not sleeping. If I get up and they're sleeping, they're fine. But if I get up and they're not sleeping, they get into things and they wake up my wife. Because if you're chilling on, if you're tuning into this stream later, you'll know I'm streaming at 5 a.m. because that's the only real time I have to play. Occasionally I'll have other times, but right now, nope. Right, so now I feel like I need to start over again with what I was saying because I want to be able to clip it. Okay, so yeah, Prime 1 came out, and it was the first person, I think it was the first person 3D Metroidvania. The term Metroidvania hadn't really been established yet, I don't think. But anyway, the developers thought, you know, it's too hard for people to navigate a 3D environment and remember everything that they're supposed to remember in a way that makes a game a Metroid game. So they broke down the way that Metroid Prime 2 is set up. So I didn't notice it this playthrough. I noticed it when I was a kid, but when you go into the different areas of the map, the Torvus Bog and the Aegon Wastes, everything you need to do in that area of the map is there. And by that I mean once you enter it, you don't really have to leave it. Oh, I forgot to go back and give the energy to the thing and all that fun stuff. Okay, I gotta go back that way. Now, this wouldn't be much of a problem, but this I did remember really specifically. The whole game follows that plan. Like once I enter the Torvus Bog, I don't have to leave until I've completed my objective. I find the 3 keys, I fight the boss, all that fun stuff. But there are 2 times in the game where progression is blocked, and the only way that you can proceed is if you actually leave the area you're supposed to be in and go find the item you need in the next area. And because of that, it can cause a lot of problems for the player, I mean. And I remember very specifically one of those areas. It took me so long to figure out as a kid that I remember it to this day. And it's specifically right when you get the power bomb. You have to leave. You get the power bomb in the next area, and then your progression is blocked, but it breaks the trend of having everything in that one area, and you actually have to come back to the Torvus Bog and go all the way to the bottom of it and use the power bomb and the spider ball together to get the next item. Or maybe it's to get the power bomb. I can't remember. But yes, it breaks that trend, which caused, people have pointed it out over the years. I certainly remembered it as a kid and even now. But the idea behind making these 3 contained Metroidvania labyrinths, it's actually a pretty good idea. And because the size and scope of them don't seem to be any smaller. Like you don't get the impression that the Torvus Bog or the the Aegon Waste is actually small. So, I mean, it can work, and honestly, I think that's what they did with Prime 4. With, you know, the desert is the main hub, and then every other area is a self-contained little Metroidvania map. But if I had to choose, honestly, I probably would just want to go with don't do that. Make all the worlds interconnected, make it one big labyrinth. Yes, have different areas like you did since Super Metroid. Do that, but don't, because, you know, players have become, you know, aware of what they're getting into with it when they're getting into a 3D Metroidvania. The 3D world is no longer a new concept that can confuse players, and so do it. You know, make your 3D first-person Metroidvania because we can handle it as players. Or at least people who are familiar with Metroidvanias can. Which I think Nintendo and Retro Studios was worried about when they made Prime 4. Which is why it's probably more segmented in its design. Love that design. Yeah, the dark suit and light suit are, I think, some of the best designed Metroid suits. The new one in Prime 4 is actually really cool too, but the dark suit and the light suit are just so unique. Hang on, Kitty is... while this cutscene plays, I'm going to get my cat because he's starting to get into things. He's fine, just playing with stuff. And so now we can leave the Torvus Bog. We don't really have to come back here until that one sequence break that I mentioned a second ago. Which threw people off. That I feel, now that I'm reflecting on it, I do feel that was poor execution because, you know, you want to... Game design's all about like communicating things to the player to help them understand the game world you created, and you want to do it in a way that's not too handholdy and not too loose, otherwise no one knows what's going on. That decision to have only 2 instances in the game where they have to leave the area they're in to go out to another area, I kind of feel is a little unfair. And so remember that rant I went on about you always want the game to you always want the player to feel like it's their fault whenever they fail or they do something wrong. Well, this is a situation where if you got lost here and you didn't really know the way to go for hours and hours, that's on the game. Retro Studios should have programmed it in better or adjusted the layout of some of the items to get you to understand, like, hey, at some point you do have to leave the area you're in and possibly find a new area. The only saving grace for for them in this regard is that it is very common in Metroidvanias to have to do that. Like, it's very common in Metroidvanias for you to have to progress in one area for a few hours and then get stuck and then have to pore over your map and try to figure out where do I go. And sometimes it might involve you going to a completely different area of the map, one that you had already explored. So there's some like intuitive design stuff going on there. And if you don't know what intuitive design is, it's I believe it's originated as a UI term, where, you know, it's like where do you find like if I'm designing a user interface, there are certain things that are so common in all user interfaces that to not do them that way would be detrimental. You know, as long as it's not copyrighted or anything. But like, where do you find the edit button in a document? You always click File, Edit, or something like that. Or it's always on the top left of those menu bars. I think I got that wrong, actually. File is next to Edit, or something like that. You get what I'm saying. The A button, or sorry, not the A button, but another intuitive design thing is with the controllers. Like, this is the standard controller layout now for video games. Okay, Nintendo tried to push the N64 and their own controller layout with the GameCube, but the dual control stick layout is now the standard for the industry. That's what I mean by kind of intuitive design. And so even genres of games have their own intuitive design. And so you have to be really careful when you break that, because, you know, player expectations in the sense of like how the game plays is definitely a thing to consider. In Metroid Prime, the original Metroid Prime was it was a very new thing. It did break a lot of intuitive design principles because it mixed Metroidvanias with first-person shooters, which again hadn't really been done before, I don't think. So in a sense, Retro Studios was pretty much flying blind with what they had to work with what they expected the player to be able to handle and what they didn't. And it really worked out for them, actually. Metroid Prime, I don't think it made money for sure, but I don't think it, you know, was a huge hit at the time. But it's definitely a cult classic now, at least. I don't want to fight this guy. Okay, fine. I'll fight you. Where'd you go? Yeah, I definitely think something's wrong with these guys phasing in and out. Prime hack must be. I don't remember that happening in the original GameCube version. Nice. Okay, now that I have the grapple beam, I need to somehow get over there. But this way is always blocked. So is there something in Dark Aether? Yes, there is. I think I need to go up into the temple. Hopefully. here we go. Look at the world map here. This should spit me out right there, and I should be able to get over here and translate that, and that should take me to a new area, hopefully. Oh, what? Do I have to go talk to Umoth? I think I do. I didn't watch any of the Game Awards. I woke up this morning and did a quick perusing of X to see what people were saying. And the Game Awards are funny because everyone always fights about the games, but then mostly just tunes in anyway. Hang on. The Temple of Torvis glows with energy once more. Only one temple remains without the light of Aether. You must travel to our fortress, high in the cliffs. The last temple lies in the fortress. Seek knowledge there before invading the Ing Hive. Be cautious in the fortress. This place was once guarded by machines of our creations, but now they are corrupted slaves of the Ing. I don't know why, but I remember that boss. His name is Quadraxis, which is awesome name. Quadraxis. It's funny what, like, random things you remember from your childhood. I don't know why, but I remember Quadraxis for some reason. But now that it's pointed out to me, I do see how Retro Studios did feel like they needed to be a bit more handholdy with Prime 2, which I think because of those sequence breaks actually made it worse than it actually was. And now I forgot what I was saying. It's okay though. It'll come back to me. A little bit of a save. Oh yeah, the Game Awards. Yeah, I feel like that's a good example of the whole gaming journalism debate. Like nobody trusts the gaming journalists, and they're pretty much the ones that decide what goes on at the Game Awards, I guess, and the games that are nominated and how, I don't know, all that stuff. But yeah, we still all tune in because we want to know what's going on. I think most people tune in because they want to see what games are going to be released soon. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out, and honestly, it's like, makes me a little sad because, you know, I just don't have the time to play like I once did. And there's so many, you know, new AAA games coming out there that I want to play, but I haven't played yet. Like I want to play Black Myth Wukong, and that's the one that comes to mind. Resident Evil 9's coming out. I worked really hard earlier this year to catch up on my Resident Evil series. I'd only played up to 5, and I used to be a huge fan of the series. Like I played the GameCube one to death, and it was awesome. Yeah, I loved that game. And then 4 came out. That one, 4 and the remake for the GameCube are probably in my top 10 games of all time. So I played through 6. 6 was great in one aspect, but not so great in other aspects. 6 they really mastered the action gameplay that they wanted to implement, that they had been like growing and improving since 4. So in that sense, it was awesome. The gameplay was a ton of fun. Like diving through the air, shooting zombies. Like Leon could whip out 2 pistols. You know, it was all very seamless, and they really did figure out how to make the action both cinematic, but also not in a way that detracts from the gameplay. And of course, I didn't get to play it with another person, but I did play 5 a lot co-op, and those games co-op are just a ton of fun. So if you've never played 6 or 5, definitely give them a playthrough, and maybe if you can find a friend who will play with you, give it a shot. It's a lot of fun. 7, I really, really liked. I played it alone in the dark, and it was, oh man, that game was a ton of fun. I liked Ethan Winters as a protagonist. I know a lot of people didn't, but I think I liked him because he was the everyman. He was just like your normal dude who gets thrown into this impossible situation and just has to figure it out. Has to save his wife. I wouldn't say, I totally understand why people say it's not a Resident Evil game, because again, it breaks, what we know as intuitive design stuff, but when it comes to survival horror and specifically the Resident Evil genre, but they did that before with Prime 4 and it worked out, and they did it again with not Prime 4, Resident Evil 4, and they did it again with Resident Evil 7. So, it worked. And then I played through, of course, Resident Evil 8, which was a ton of fun. It's a really fun game. Story's a little weird. Not weird. There's a lot left to be desired out of the story of Resident Evil 8. But it is a ton of fun. If you ever want if you want to feel like Van Helsing, but you're not Van Helsing, like Hugh Jackman Van Helsing from the early 2000s, go play Resident Evil 8. It throws you into a very Transylvania-esque setting, and you kill monsters while trying to rescue your daughter. It is awesome. I love the fairy tale angle they were trying to go. I actually wish they played that up a bit more. But it's a really, really fun game. And after that, I played Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, which is also an incredible game. If you like 2D action precision platformers that aren't Metroidvanias, definitely play Ragebound. And then I got sucked into Silksong, which took a good 40 to 60 hours of my life. I don't regret it. It was a lot of fun. The game's a masterpiece. But it is long for a Metroidvania. I don't think the optimal length for a Metroidvania, I feel like on the first playthrough should, I think, be somewhere between 10 and 15 hours. I just think when you go through a 40-hour slog through labyrinths and stuff like that, if you know that's coming again on your next playthrough, kind of, I don't know. For me, it detracted a little bit. It disincentivized me from starting another run through it. That and the fact that the only other mode to play was Steel Soul mode, which basically is like, if you die, you lose. So there's really no, there wasn't like a middle ground for the difficulty there. I had to, so there's really no reason for me to play Silk Song again until they come out with a DLC or something. Gosh. Yeah, the length of a Metroidvania, I feel like the 10 to 15 hours is a nice little sweet spot, because your first playthrough, it feels long, but then you play it again, and it then, because you know the layout of everything. Oh gosh, oh, man, how did he get there? You know the layout and everything like that. It ends up taking you maybe between 6 and 10 hours. And then once you really get to know the game, it gets between like 5 and 6, or 4 to 6. At least that was my progression with Metroid Dread. And making your game replayable, I think, is another aspect of game design that I think, sorry. Wow, I'm surprised I didn't die there. Yeah, making your game, what I was saying before my cat interrupted me. Ugh, I gotta get him out of here. He's going crazy. Sorry, everyone. Thought he could be in here with me, but he's just too curious about everything. Alright, let's kill these guys and move on with my life. Okay, there's still an enemy around here somewhere. Yeah, so what I was saying was, making your game replayable is, not every game I feel like needs to have that. You know, if your gameplay is fun enough, people will want to naturally replay the game. If I were younger, I would have probably played through Silk Song again after beating it. But, you know, the time sink is real. And I don't have a lot of time these days for that sort of stuff. But if you can design your game so that someone can sit down, play it, beat it in a couple hours, and it still be very fun, and still feel like, you know, they beat it on a new setting, or they unlocked a new thing. That's why I feel like roguelites are becoming more and more not becoming more and more popular. They are popular because people want to sit down and be able to play a game for just a little while, make some progress, and then stop playing it. And not have to invest hours and hours at a time in order to feel like they accomplished anything. Dead Cells is an incredible game that for a long time was like the only game I played. And they really perfected that roguelite aspect. It's like, okay, I'm going to sit down and play for half an hour, do a run, see how far I get. Okay, didn't make it, but you know, I found some new things. I tried out some new weapon combos, and it was great. And you know, progress doesn't necessarily mean you unlock something. It means like you feel like you got better or made it a little bit farther. That I feel like is the good way of drawing a player back, which in contrast to, you know, gacha mechanics and loot boxes and daily rewards, things like that. I remember always thinking this enemy was kind of stupid. A Resbit. Rogue patrol drone. Variable beam cannons and digital viruses delivery system makes target very dangerous. Barrier shield and phasing power help protect it from damage. Okay. Oh. Did I kill it? Nope. Maybe? Whoa. It's, oh, ZAB to reboot. Oh gosh, all my buttons are mapped to the wrong thing because I'm playing on a Z is not Z, A is not A, B is not B, and I don't know which is which. So I just mashed buttons a second there until. Okay, I don't like this guy. Ugh, come on. Seriously, this. Thank goodness. That is an annoying enemy. Yeah, sorry if you happen to be on X and you're chatting. Sorry, I don't have X chat being monitored right now. Only YouTube, or Kick or Twitch actually, because my second monitor is on the fritz and I just can't have it up at the moment. So I apologize. But go follow me on YouTube. Boost attack can disrupt its spin. Oh, can I? Nope. Okay. Alright. Nothing like a good old missile to the face. Oh gosh. Maybe darkness? Do I really have to use the boost ball to kill this thing? Looks like it. Or bombs. Can bombs do it? Oh yeah, that's right. I remember now. Yay, some missiles. Ugh, that area does not look fun. Okay, don't have that yet. This is a cool, unique area. Very cyberpunky, Tron-esque. If you're a fan of Tron. Oh, thank goodness. Save point. I will say this, though, that I'm having a lot more fun than I thought I was going to have replaying Prime 2. The goal is to get through Prime 3. The original goal was to get through Prime 2 and 3 before Prime 4 came out, but Apparently, you can't do. A month wasn't long enough to do that when you can only play maybe like 4 or 5 hours a week. Okay, I need a quick way to kill one of these things. See, I don't like that. I don't like how it does that little thing where I can't target it. Oh, but I can shoot it. Okay, never mind. I changed my mind. It's not a problem. I just have to aim properly and shoot properly. There we go. Okay. All right. What's going on here? Can I walk up this? No. Got a scanny scan. Part of the reactor control system unit is offline. What's going on here? Just you know, bouncing. Oh, I'm silly. I'm silly. Just gotta jump up here. I haven't had to get a hint in a while, so that's good. I will say, though, that when I do finally play Metroid Prime 4, I will make sure to see if there's any way to turn off any kind of hint system. I mean, I'm pretty big on, you know, doing it myself the first time through. I think I definitely did that with Resident Evil 8, 7, and 8. Played through my first playthrough by myself. Okay, my opinion on those enemies has gone from I hate this enemy to I think this is a really cool enemy, actually, in the span of 5 minutes. I think the reason why I say that is because you know, if you take too long to beat them, they do that annoying, like, I'm going to hack your system type thing. Well, let me read this. Engage online. Amber Cobalt. Okay, well, obviously I have to shut that off. What's that? Oh, okay, he's gone. Okay, yeah, so that enemy. If you take too long, it does that annoying, like, hacking thing. But that's kind of on you. if you take too long, you know, it is what it is. But what I like that how at some point it goes to so you can't target it. It like takes away your targeting ability, and you have to actually manually target it rather than rely on your Z targeting, which I think is kind of fun. Which now that I think about it, I don't know how that actually worked in the original. Like if you just couldn't shoot it in the original because you couldn't. Oh yeah, you could aim, but you had to be stationary. But in the newer versions, the Prime trilogy, with the modern controls, you can aim and move at the same time. But I like how that it basically it removes a game mechanic that you've come to rely on, and you have to, you know, you have to adjust. You have to think of okay, now I have to do this on my own without any kind of help from the system itself that I've gotten used to. I think that's pretty cool. And it makes sense with the enemy. The enemy seems to be, you know, cybernetic in nature. So it fits. It all fits together with the environment and the kind of enemy you're fighting. I like that a lot. Well done, Retro Studios. Yeah, enemy design too is like with how an enemy looks. It doesn't sound important, but it kind of is. And I have a point something I want to say about that, but I do think I need to figure something out here for a second. I'm not quite sure that okay, the last one is green, so can I shut these down here? Is there a right sequence to these? I totally forget. But I'm pretty sure I have to shut them down from a different area. And of course, now I gotta fight this thing again. Okay, well, I'll just say my point then. Oh, there's a missile tank up there. That's nice. So this is strictly speaking on how enemies look, and there is a talent to making all of your enemies look a way that fits with the game. If that makes sense. Like you don't want the player to come across a new enemy and them think like, wow, that looks really, really out of place. Because it's another minor thing that can break immersion. You know, it's at worst it's the player notices it and consciously tells themselves this enemy looks really stupid and out of place with everything else in the game. It'd be like if you were playing Resident Evil and down the hallway you came across like a happy clown, like not a creepy clown, but like a happy clown, and it was an enemy, and you think, wow, this clown is giving off vibes of like he's a friendly clown. I'm not scared of him, and then he tries to eat you, and you're like, okay, this is just kind of silly. Maybe clown's not the best example. I'm trying to think of something cute and cuddly to put in a Resident Evil game. But that's my overall point. It's a small thing. It's sometimes a nitpick for sure. But you don't want that to happen. So yeah, at worst it's they notice it and they consciously tell themselves that like, hey, this is out of place. At best, if you have an enemy like that, it's that subconscious thing that happens. You know, I say it so many times, but it's that red letter media saying, Mr. Plinkett, you know, it happened so fast, but that you might not have noticed it, but your brain did, and that's the idea behind it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to be all about here in this channel is when I play a game that I really love or really hate, I want to be able to put words to it because I think it's beyond just simple preference. Like, oh, you only like Metroid Prime because, you know, that's just your thing. You like it. It's like, well, yes, that's part of it, but beyond that is Metroid Prime and Prime 2 and 3 are well-designed games, and there's things that they do that make it well-designed games. You know, if they didn't put all the polish on it or make the systems the way they did or the game mechanics the way they did, I would probably not like it, despite the fact that I like Metroid, the Metroid IP. And I remember asking once on X, like, what if the opposite of music is noise? What would the opposite of a game be? And I got some pretty interesting answers. unfortunately, it's because a game is made up of music, of art, of story, of gameplay. You can't really distill one definition of like what is the opposite of a game. But if I had to try to distill it and combine all the answers I got, it seemed people seem to be in agreement that the opposite of a game is chaos, unordered, pointless chaos. In every sense of the word. Like, if a game needs to have rules, chaos does not have any rules to it. If a game needs to have a goal, you don't have a goal. And I think rules and a goal are two of the foundational structures of a game. So if I really want someone to try to make a game where there are no rules and there's no point to it. Like, how fun would that be to play? Like, probably not very fun. At best, it would be a waste of time. Because even if someone tried to make a game with no rules... Oh, I'm stupid. Amber, Cobalt, Crimson, Emerald. I'm glad my chat's not very big right now, because if it was... And I immediately was like, okay, there's a sequence, and then I forgot what the sequence was. All right, we'll do this, and then we'll call it a day. Amber, Cobalt, Crimson, Emerald. Amber, Cobalt, Crimson, Emerald. Amber, Cobalt. Oops, I did it wrong. Okay. Amber. Cobalt. Crimson. Emerald. Yeah. See, even my first thought was, why can't they just call it blue, red, orange, and green? It's like, that would have been a lot simpler. But Amber, Cobalt, Crimson, Emerald fits with the setting. Fits with, like, you know, this isn't play school. You're not trying to match a square shape into a square hole, even though sometimes you are in some of these puzzles. But, you know, it's amber. It's not orange. It's crimson. It's not red. You know, it just kind of fits with the whole vibe of what's going on here. Okay, your second hint as the player that, hey, you're going to have to fight this thing eventually, so be ready for that. Alright, unfortunately, as much as I want to keep playing... Okay, I'll check out that door. If it's a save station, I'll save. If not, I'll have to go back. Just not a lot of time these days. And can't even get through there, so... Yep, okay. Gonna have to go back and save and call it a day. Boosting around, there we go. Drop down here. Whee. No fall damage because I'm Samus Aran, who's basically a super soldier with Chozo DNA in a power suit. All right. Sorry for the animal interruptions and everything like that. Thank you for those of you who've been chilling out and watching. See that there's maybe 4 or 5 of you out there. I appreciate it a lot. If you want to see, subscribe if you want to help me out. I post clips, shorts of my playthroughs of different topics on YouTube and on Instagram, and sometimes on TikTok, although TikTok has been weird with gaining traction. Yeah, post comments if you like or don't like what I say. Anything helps me develop my own opinions on things and change my outlook on stuff, or maybe I think you're wrong and we can engage in a lively debate. Yeah, follow me on X as well. I share some of my when I clip stuff on Kick, I share it there, so it's in a much more horizontal format. And then of course, if Kick is your thing, give me a follow on Kick or Twitch. You know, I'm really doing the scatter shot, throwing all the spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks before I settle down with, you know, just a couple platforms. So anyway, thank you all. This is a ton of fun. And don't know if I'll stream tomorrow or not. It's Saturday. I might. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll. I don't know. We'll see. It's a lot of fun, but also maybe I'll catch up on my editing. But anyway, everyone, thank you, and I'll see you later.